Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and this is our first run review of the On Cloudeclipse. Thanks to Sports Shoes for providing us with a review sample used in this video. So before getting into what the On Cloudeclipse is like to run with, what exactly is this shoe? Well, this is a max cushion shoe, and it is definitely emerging of a little bit what we saw on the On Cloudmonster and also the Cloudsurfer as well too. Now, price-wise, it sits above the Cloudmonster in terms of those kind of key specs. It's got the same drop, so it's 6mm drop as the Cloudmonster as well too. Weight-wise, it's just a little bit heavier than the Cloudmonster as well too. In terms of the upper, you are getting an engineered mesh upper, so it's really built for comfort, being accommodating, giving you something that's nice and breathable and well suited to kind of run a little bit longer in this shoe. When we get into the midsole, we're starting to see the influence from the Cloudsurfer. So you're getting a double hit of the Cloudtec Phase midsole technology we saw in the Cloudsurfer shoe, a shoe that we really enjoyed running in this year. Now, to combine with that, you're getting a softer version of On's Helium foam in here as well. And you're also getting the speedboard that was in the Cloudmonster and not in the Cloudsurfer. And that sits above the outsole and a little bit further back in this shoe as well. And that's to offer a little bit more stability when you are running in this shoe. Now, in terms of the outsole, it is a different outsole to the one we got on the Cloudmonster. There's definitely kind of clearly a bit more rubber and kind of some dedicated areas here. And the reason that On has done that apparently is to make it a better fit in terms of running on wetter pavements and wetter ground ultimately. So those are the key elements on the On Cloudeclipse. It is a max cushion shoe. Got an engineered mesh upper, slightly heavier than the Cloudmonster, more expensive than the Cloudmonster as well too. It's got that double hit of the Cloudtec Phase midsole technology that we saw on the Cloudsurfer. Also got that repositioned speed boards, got that softer Helium foam as well, and a slightly rejigged outsole to make it a bit stronger in terms of durability and that grip on wet roads as well too. So let's get into the fit, the run test, and give you some initial thoughts on the On Cloudeclipse. So I'll start with fit first, and I have the On Cloudeclipse in a UK size 8, the same size that I've had with the On Cloudmonster and also the Cloudsurfer as well. Now, I've had good fits with those shoes as well. I can't say I've had any problems with this shoe on my first run. I will say, having thrown the Cloudmonster back on, I do think this shoe opens up a little bit more up front here, which I think maybe if you've got slightly wider feet, you'll probably appreciate that kind of opening up and that kind of roomier feel in this shoe. It does kind of narrow a little bit more in the mid-fit as you expect, and the hold feels generally good from that side of things. Space up front of the toes I was absolutely happy with as well too. I do find that you maybe need to kind of cinch these laces a little bit tighter in against this kind of skinny tongue to make sure you get a good lockdown, but ultimately pretty good in my UK size 8. I've got pretty narrow feet. I didn't find the fit of this shoe any issue in that, as I said, in that first run. Okay, so I've just got back from my first run in the On Cloudeclipse, a pretty up-tempo 10k run, kind of 750 minute mile pace. So not my quickest, but definitely trying to do a lively run in this shoe to ultimately see if it has a little bit of that versatility that I was hoping it might do. Now, the first thing I will mention, obviously looks great. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. On shoes always look great, and the On Cloudeclipse suitably looks fantastic to run in and is a very attractive looking shoe. In terms of the upper, fit very well. It felt pretty good on that run. I was pretty happy in terms of the snugness of the upper, but definitely in terms of the room, as I said in the fit section, I do think you need to lock things in a little bit tighter with the laces on that tongue, and no kind of slippage or any kind of rubbing at the heel whatsoever in terms of the padding you're getting here too. When you get into that ride and what that feels like, this is definitely softer than running in the Cloudmonster. Now, it's not super soft like the Cloudsurfer, despite having that kind of Cloudtec Phase midsole tech here. But you're getting is that kind of softer Helium foam as well, which definitely creates something a little bit softer, but it's not too soft. It's not, you're not sinking into it. There is a nice kind of bounce there. And then you have that kind of speedboard that kind of levels things out, gives you that kind of control, stability in the shoe, and it definitely does feel stable. And I ran a little bit quicker in that run. I definitely felt that bounce. I definitely felt that kind of energy and kind of liveliness in the shoe, but also felt it was keeping me in check and kind of keeping things controlled. Now, when I did slow things down a little bit, I did almost feel that speedboard a little bit more, and you know, it wasn't uncomfortable, but I definitely felt it. I felt its presence a little bit more. So I don't know whether I'm absolutely convinced about the kind of positioning of the speedboard. I can see its value of having it in the shoe and how it works in conjunction with what you're getting in the midsole here and the kind of lively, kind of energetic ride you're getting here. But ultimately, yeah, it's something I would, you know, over kind of a few more runs, whether that's going to kind of maintain or whether that's something I'm going to notice a bit more. But that's definitely something I kind of spotted in that first run. In terms of the outsole, you know, as you know, On's talking about putting a bit more kind of rubber here to kind of improve the kind of traction and grip on wet pavements. I thought I might hit some rain. I didn't. It was pretty sunny, so it was on dry pavements and road, maybe some kind of wetter, kind of muddier leaves, but the grip wise it was absolutely fine, no major issues. Turking corners and kind of from that point of view is absolutely fine. One thing also, I was worried maybe it was going to run a little bit heavy, but I don't think it is that heavy. It doesn't look as heavy, it doesn't run as heavy as it looks. It is a little bit heavier, kind of in my UK size 8 compared to a Cloudmonster, but I think the weight wise, I think it works pretty well. And I think that's a real positive here to make sure, or give it the scope to be a little bit more versatile. So yeah, a pretty positive first run in this shoe. As I said, not absolutely convinced by everything in this shoe, but I think in terms of my experience in the Cloudmonster and what this brings to that shoe, almost as an evolution of that shoe, I feel that there's a bit more to this shoe, a bit more that I've appreciated and liked in that first run. And it's a Cloudmonster is a shoe that I haven't long-term used much, and I think potentially I'm seeing a little bit more in this shoe would entice me to use it a bit more, and maybe suggest it's a max cushion shoe that has a little bit of that kind of versatility and doesn't feel too heavy too. So some initial thoughts on the On Cloudeclipse. A pretty pricey max cushion shoe, but let's be honest, On shoes are generally more expensive than the competition. Now, I think it's an interesting one because when the On Cloudmonster launched, I think we had mixed feelings about that in the team, and then you look at the max cushion shoes that have launched since that shoe, it definitely hasn't felt as memorable in comparison. Now with the On Cloudeclipse, I feel like there's a little bit more to it. I think pulling the elements of the midsole from the On Cloudsurfer, building on what we got on the On Cloudmonster as well, combining those things together, I feel what you've got here is a more memorable shoe in terms of what it's like to run, or at least what it felt like in that first run for me. I feel like ride-wise, I think it feels a lot nicer. I think a little bit more forgiving than the On Cloudmonster. You're still getting ultimately something that feels energetic, feels lively, feels that it's controlled and stable as well, the kind of things you'd want from a max cushion shoe as well too. And I don't feel like it runs as heavy as it looks or as it weighed in for me as well too. When you kind of compare it to other max cushion shoes, look at things that have kind of really stood out for us this year. I think the Asics Gel Nimbus 25, I think in comparison, the ride feels a little bit more lively for me in this compared to that shoe, where I really think that shoe is really built for those easy, slow kind of recovery style runs, where I feel that this has got maybe a little bit more versatility to it, and it kind of sits with things like the Saucony Triumph 21, which again, I think, you know, that has some versatility and can work as a kind of more of a daily trainer style shoe. It has elements that gives you that kind of versatility and scope to run a mixture of different runs. Things like the New Balance SC Trainer V2, I found that was maybe a little bit on the heavy side. Then you got things like New Balance 1080 V13, which are a bit like the Gel Nimbus 25, is really about those easy, comfortable runs that has a much softer midsole compared to the On Cloudeclipse. I think if you like the Cloudmonster, maybe found it a little bit touch too firm, and wanted that controlled, stable kind of feeling in terms of that ride, and something that feels enjoyable and feels bouncy enough as well, then I feel that you're probably going to like what's going on here on the Cloudeclipse. And I said also, if you like the Cloudsurfer or like that kind of softer feeling of that kind of Cloud Phase Cloudtec Phase technology in that shoe, kind of brought into this shoe and combined with the kind of softer helium foam and that kind of speedboard as well, which you didn't get in the Cloudsurfer, then I think there's a lot to like here as well too from that perspective. So yeah, I think initial thoughts, definitely feels a little bit more likable for me personally compared to the Cloudmonster. More expensive ultimately, and as a max cushion shoe, I think, you know, there are definitely going to be cheaper options to try and to go for, but I think in terms of a good max cushion shoe from On, this feels like a much nicer one than the old Cloudmonster, and it's one that definitely I'm looking forward to spending a little bit more time in as well too. Okay, so there you have it, some initial thoughts on the On Cloudeclipse. Now, obviously, plenty more testing to do on the shoe before we get to a full review. Nick and Kieran have got this shoe on its way to them as well too, so they will be in that full multi-tester review as well. Thanks to Sports Shoes for providing the review sample, as mentioned earlier. As always, if you've got any questions, other shoes you want to see it compared to, let us know in the usual places. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about the latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.